Hi, my name's Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Steps Training. Today we're going to be doing a training demonstration for you. So we're going to walk you through the program. We're going to show you everything that your puppy has learned. We're also going to teach you how to continue with the training. Now, before we get to the more demonstrating part of the program, we're first going to talk about some really important information that's going to help you have a lifetime of success with your puppy. So, your puppy is doing fantastic. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sending him home. Like I've told you before, I train to a standard, not a strict time frame. So, your puppy has reached our standard. We have very high expectations, and it's going to be important for you that as you bring them home, that you have the same expectations. Dogs are really, really neat, that they will live up to our expectations, whether we set them high or whether we set them low. And if one person in the family sets them low and everybody else is high, they're going to continue to try and test waters and see what they can get away with. So we want to make sure that the whole family is on the same page. And that's also why these demonstrations are so important, so that we can set the bar before our puppy ever enters into our home. Now, it's important to remember, your puppy is a puppy. And so they're going to have energy and they're going to make mistakes. Just because they went through our training program does not make them a perfect dog. I always like to joke with people, if you were expecting perfection, you might want to run over to Walmart and grab you a stuffed animal. And even there, you're probably going to find a flaw. So it's important to understand that our puppy is going to make mistakes. But it's also important to understand how to deal with those mistakes as they arise. Because failure or making mistakes is a very important part of learning. And so we have what we call our 3 keys to success. Now these are how we try and keep mistakes at a minimum and make sure they don't become bad habits. They're also how we continue with the training and make sure that we have success in our home. So those 3 keys are consistency, follow through, and management. You have to have all 3. These 3 things teach our puppy that we are the leader, that we're going to take care of them, that they don't have to worry, and that their needs are going to be met. Now, so we're going to start with consistency. We've taught them a certain way, and so it's important to try and be consistent along the same lines. Now, if you say things a little bit differently, as long as you're consistent with that, your puppy will understand, but it may take them a few days. And that's why we talk about the transition period. And so for the next 2 to 4 weeks, your puppy is going to be transitioning. During this transition period, they're trying to learn what the expectations are. They're trying to learn the way that you give commands. They're going to learn what they're allowed to get away with and what they're not. And especially over the next 3 days, your puppy is going to be confused. And so they're going to probably test more boundaries, just trying to see whether that consistency, that follow through, that management, they're going to try and see whether those are there. Now, also during this transition period, they're going to be undergoing a period of stress. They're leaving a familiar environment, now being thrown into an unfamiliar environment. So they may lose their appetite. They may get what we call the puppy blues, where they're not as active as they usually are. Maybe they seem a little bit sad. They also may act out once again and see what they can get away with. So it's important that we are patient with them. I want to try and really focus on building a relationship with my puppy during these first 3 days versus trying to build these commands up back to where we have them right now. Because with the stress, there's also going to be just a little bit of regression. Now, regression doesn't mean that they're going to pee in the house or that they're not going to do commands for you. It just means, once again, that they're going to be under stress, and so we're going to take that into an account, and we're going to lower our expectations just a little bit. Now, I'm always going to enforce manners. It doesn't matter whether they're stressed or not. They're not allowed to bite me. They're not allowed to jump up. They're not allowed to break through doorways. So we're going to expect the manners, and we're going to show you all of these here in a few minutes. But the commands, I'm going to keep to a minimum. Now, during this demonstration, we're going to show you some amazing stays, the place command, and they're doing awesome. But we're going to take that down. We're not going to expect them to hold a 5-minute stay on their place within the first 3 days. Instead, I'll still do these commands, but I'm going to keep them really light. I'm going to keep them fun, and I'm going to make sure that I'm helping my puppy succeed. I always want to train to success, not to failure. I never want to play guess what's in my head. I want to make sure that they have all the answers to the test. So now let's just break down those 3 keys. So the first one, consistency. We are a balanced dog training program, and so we have markers for both reinforcement and correction. And you're going to want to use these same markers. They give a clear understanding of whether your puppy is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Like I said, we want to give them lots of information, lots of feedback. So our positive markers, we have the word good and the word okay. So good is a marker that means keep going. It's an intermediary marker. So if I put them on a place, I'm going to tell them place. I'm going to say like good girl or good boy, and I'm going to enforce that you're doing the right thing. However, you are not done. Now, when they are finished with that command, when I'm releasing them from that stay, then I'll use the word okay. So okay marks the correct behavior. It tells them that they're released from a stay and that they've done the right thing. And so it's really important to use these markers to give them that information. Once again, I'll tell them good. So that's good job, keep going. Okay, you're finished, you're able to get off, you're able to maybe venture out a little bit, give them a little bit of freedom. Okay just means that you're done with that behavior at that time. Now, we also are giving them rewards during this time. So your puppy right now is very food motivated. That is their currency. Just as you would not go to work if you did not receive a paycheck, your puppy is not going to work for you unless they're being rewarded or they're paid out. Now, eventually, as they get a little bit older, we can wean those rewards off. There's also times where I don't want to use a food reward. But right now, and especially during this transition period, we want to use a high value reward. And so I'll give them a little piece of treat. I might give them some ham or hot dogs or maybe a little bit of cheese, something high value, just to really drive this point home that I'm going to reward you and that I have the same expectations and that this is very positive for working for me. Now, there are going to be times where you don't have food on you, and that's where I'll use praise and affection. And of course, I mix that in with everything. I want to praise my dog. I want to show them affection and really show them that they're doing the right thing. Now, if I'm using a toy as a reward, which a toy is a good form of a reward, that's when I do not want to have treats on me. I want them to be focused on that toy. Because the moment that I pull out a treat, then they're going to forget about the toy and they're going to want to work for food. And I want them to have a good toy drive because that's a really important way to mentally stimulate your dog as well as meet their physical needs so that we can give them exercise. So those are our three primary forms of rewards. That's food, praise and affection, and toys. So use all three, but really keep it heavy on simple treats right now. Really drive this point home. Now, when we talk about a correction, so that's our second part of consistency. Like I said, you have to have both. I do not believe that you need to physically dominate your dog. I want our relationship to be built out of respect for me as the leader. And so I give them, once again, a lot of feedback, but my correction a lot of times is just no, and that's all it is. Dogs read our voice fluctuation and our body language very, very well. And so me changing my voice and just giving them a sharp no is all the correction I need. Now, once your dog fixes their mistake, then I'm not going to carry on this correction for a long period of time because your dog's not going to understand. They're just going to think that you're mad at them. And so the correction needs to be quick, it needs to be timely, and then we're done. So like I said, no is kind of that primary correction. Sometimes it's whatever comes out of my mouth, depending on the severity or depending on the action. Now, to kind of give you an example, once again, if I'm working with them and I put them in a stay and they break, it happens all the time because once again, we learn a lot through failure. Now, if they break a stay, I'm not going to get mad. It's not that big a deal. We're working, we're training and learning. And so I'll just simply, no, and then I'll have them do it again. I will always end on a correct behavior. I am never going to end on a failure. And if I have to break a behavior down to make sure that we get that correct repetition, I will. Now, if they do something a little bit more serious, maybe they jump up on me, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, then I'm going to give them a little bit more of a sharp correction. So it would be, no, off. My voice gets a little deeper. A lot of times I kind of puff out my chest and I'm changing my body language. Once again, that's enough of a correction. And then let's say they do something a little bit more serious, like they start to pee in the house. That's when I get frantic. And so my correction might look like, no, 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 no. And I'm just trying to get them to stop. And then I'm going to quickly take them outside. And just as important as that correction is following through and making sure I teach them what the expected behavior is, which I'll get to in just 1 minute. The last part of a correction I want to talk about is a physical correction. Now, once again, I don't believe you need to physically dominate your dog, but there is power, once again, in telling your dog no, and I will accompany that with a leash pop, which is just pop, pop. I'm not trying to yank them around. It's not to inflict any harm. The purpose of that is to regain their attention to then change their behavior. Now, once again, I don't want to injure my dog. I don't want to yank them around. It is not to inflict harm at all. It is simply to regain composure. So that's consistency. You need to consistently reward. You need to consistently correct. You have to have both. Whatever you reinforce will get replicated. And so if you are not consistent and the only time you give your dog feedback is when they're doing something wrong, guess what? They're probably not going to respect you, and instead it's going to be more of a fear-based relationship, which is what we don't want. So even if my puppy is just laying at my feet chewing on something they're supposed to, I might simply just bend down, pet them a little bit, tell them they're being a good boy. We want to give them that feedback, and especially as you're working with them, as you start to implement the commands and the leash work, give them that feedback. It is going to build your relationship more than anything you can do. So be consistent. Once again, anytime I give my dog a correction, I want to then follow through and help them understand what the correct behavior is. So that's where key number 2 comes in. So key number 2, follow through. Like I said, anytime that I correct my dog, I want to then teach them what the expected behavior is. So I'm always going to follow through. Whether I ask them to do a command and they are confused or maybe they ignore me, or whether they're doing something they're not supposed to and we catch them in the act. The follow through is a little bit different on each one. So first off, let's talk about maybe you're sitting there and you see your puppy go over and start to try and chew on a baseboard or chew on something they're not supposed to. This is where we use a concept that we call marking and redirecting. So if I saw them start chewing on something they weren't supposed to, I'm going to immediately correct them. So that correction is no. Now, once I correct them, they look at me, I'm going to redirect them into an appropriate behavior. So even if they don't look at me, I'm then going to remove them from that situation. So we'll use the example of chewing on a baseboard. I'll tell them no. Now I'm going to take them over to maybe their bed and I'll give them something to chew on. And so marking the incorrect behavior, redirecting into an appropriate behavior. Now during this puppy stage, puppies need to chew. And so my redirection, I'm going to try and match texture. They were chewing on a baseboard, maybe I'll give them a bully stick or a marrow bone, something hard that they can really get into. If they want to chew on maybe one of your pillows or a soft bed, give them a plush toy. They're chewing on their leash, give them a rope. Try and match those needs, match consistency. So you can do that with a lot of different behaviors. Even jumping is another one. A lot of times if your puppy's jumping, I'll correct them for jumping and then I'll redirect them into an appropriate behavior like a sit. So we teach them, if they want our attention, they've got to do this behavior. This is a good behavior versus the bad behavior. Now let's talk about follow through if they ignore you or maybe don't understand. So let's use the example of jumping on the couch. Let's say we're in the kitchen, we're cooking, we look over and Marley is jumping up on the couch. So I would immediately say, Marley, off, giving her a command. If she gets down and listens to that, then I'm going to reward her. So I'm going to reinforce the behavior that she just performed. If she got down, maybe came over to me, I'm going to pet her. I'm going to tell her she's a good girl because she fixed her mistake. And so the correction is done. She did the right behavior after she was asked. That's all that needs to happen. Now, if she didn't, if she had her paws up there and she looked over her shoulder like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? You're over there. I will not repeat the command. The worst thing you can do is sit there and go, Marley, off, get down, get off the couch. Because you're just giving her a whole spiel of what she doesn't understand. If she doesn't do the behavior when asked, I am not going to repeat the command. I will correct her. So if I said, Marley, off, and she didn't get down, I am then going to say no, and now I'm going to start to approach her. I'm going to walk across the room. Even if I am comfortable wrapped up in a blanket, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and remove her. Now, if she fixed her mistake with that prompt, if I said no and I started to motion towards her and she got down, I'm going to reward that behavior. I'll call her over, have her sit, praise her, make sure that she understands that, yes, that's exactly what I want. That's a good girl. Now, if she still ignored you and kept trying to get up onto the couch, or maybe succeeded and now is trying to get comfortable, I am going to walk all the way over to her, and at that point I will repeat the correction. I will not repeat the command. I will tell her no again, and now I'm going to remove her and I am going to redirect her into an appropriate activity. Whether that's you're going to come over by me, you're going to lay on the floor, you're going to chew on a toy, or maybe it's, okay, I can't watch you very well right now, you're just going to go take a little break in the crate. Now I'm not going to be super mad and shove her in the crate and make it a big deal, because then you're going to destroy the crate. Instead, the correction has already happened. Now I'm redirecting her into something appropriate to do. And so the correction is done. I do not need to carry on this frustration or this anger after the correction has happened. But I am always going to give them that correction, and I am always going to follow through. Now, let's just say that I gave your puppy a command, and so I put them in. Sorry, let me take that back. Let's just say that I asked them for a sit. So I said sit, gave them a hand signal, and they looked at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never seen this command before. Now, instead of getting frustrated and repeating myself, I'm going to maybe adjust my body language. The worst thing you can do is go sit, sit, no sit, sit, because they're not going to understand at that point. Dogs don't speak English. They understand the sound of our voice making that sound of sit. And so they know that it's one time. So sit is the command, not sit, 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 sit. So one time, ask them once. Now, once again, if they look up at me like, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to give them a few seconds to think about it. Dogs are not robots. They have to process things. And at the same time, while I'm allowing them to process, maybe I'll adjust my body language. So maybe I'll kind of lean forward or make the hand gesture. But I'm going to help them succeed. Now then, if they blatantly ignored me and just tried to walk off, that is when I will correct them. I will say, no, now I'm going to reset. So I'm going to bring them back to the same area and ask them again. But I will only repeat the command if they completely walk away. If they are focused on me, just trying to understand what I am asking, I will not repeat the command, but I will adjust my body language to help them succeed. If they ignore me or they run off, then I will implement a correction and reset to where I will repeat the command. So hopefully that makes sense. If you do have any questions on any of this, please let me know. But follow through is super important. The moment that you don't follow through, the moment you call your dog to come and they run the other direction and you say, I'll get them later, is the moment that your dog loses respect for you and are going to try and push more and more buttons or try and push more and more boundaries. So it is so important that you follow through and help your dog succeed. Give them necessary feedback and information. So that was key number 2. We've got consistency, number 1, follow through, number 2, and now number 3, which is management. Management is going to be the most important thing you do throughout this transition period. When we manage our dog, we maintain control and we provide an environment where they don't even have the opportunity to create bad habits. Good management when bringing a puppy home is 100% supervision. 100% supervision is active eyes on them at all times. That's not, well, I saw them a few minutes ago. You have to know what they're doing at all times, what they have in their mouth, what they're getting into, where they're laying down, all of it. 100% supervision. Now, there are some good management tools to help you along the way. The crate is your best management tool. You know that if they're in the crate, they're not chewing something up, they're not destroying a family heirloom, and they're not peeing. So use the crate to your advantage. Anytime you cannot give them 100% supervision, use the crate as management. Use a leash. I let my puppies drag around just a really lightweight 4-foot leash for the first few weeks that they're in my house. That way I have a quick way to grab them if needs be, or to take them outside. I will also keep them on a long lead until I've built a relationship to where I know that they are going to follow through and they are going to come back when called. So that once again, this way, they do not have an opportunity to run off and not listen to me. They don't have an opportunity to create a bad habit. Now, as we go throughout the manners, we're going to talk about how to manage those each individually because they're all managed a little bit differently. But the key points to remember is 100% supervision. That is the most important thing you are going to do over this transition period. Know where your dog is at all times. And once again, that's not, oh, I knew where they were 2 minutes ago. It's, I know where they are now, I know what they're chewing on. Because if you walk around the corner and your dog has had an accident and you don't see it, there's nothing you can do. And so by good management, you provide the opportunity to develop a relationship as well as to create a set of expectations that your dog understands and that are going to set you up for success. So recap, the 3 keys: be consistent, both rewarding and correcting. Lots of feedback is important. Whatever you reinforce will get replicated. If you ask them to do something, follow through. Do not allow your dog to get away with ignoring you or ending on an incorrect behavior. Always train to success, not to failure. And make sure that you follow through. If you ask them to do it, help them succeed. And the last one, management. Manage your dog, 100% supervision. You know what they are getting into at all times. You know where they are. That is going to set you up for success. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to pull out your puppy and we're going to walk through all of the training with you. As you watch this video, please write down questions and then give me a phone call or an email. We want to help you succeed. We want to make sure that this transition is as smooth as possible. And that is, once again, the purpose of this video is to help you. And so if you have any questions, please let us know. But we're very happy with where your puppy's at and excited to show off this training. This next video, we're going to be talking about our expectations with crate training and house training. Now, with the crate, I expect that your puppy is sleeping through the night, 8 hours, no problem, and up to 4 hours during the day. Now, in the evening time, the biggest part of crate training is setting a routine. So here at Puppy Steps Training, we're putting them to bed at 10 p.m. and getting them up at 6 a.m. So a good solid 8 hours. Now, they can go longer than that as they get a little bit older, but as you bring them home, don't expect to push that right away. If you are going to adjust that schedule, do it incrementally and go slow. Just know that at about 5:50, 6 o'clock, they're going to start getting restless because they're used to getting up at that time. Now, another big part of sleeping through the night is that mealtime routine. So we feed them at 6 p.m. and usually right around 6 a.m. The morning time, that a.m. meal, isn't super important that you stick to that schedule. You can honestly get them up and feed them when you're ready. However, the evening time meal, we do want to feed them by 6 p.m., no later than that, because I do want a good 4 hours for them to clear everything that's in their system so that they can sleep through the night. Now, we also limit water for the first couple weeks because they're stressed out. When a puppy's stressed out, they drink a lot more and they have to go to the bathroom a lot more. So we want to just, take away some of the fuel for that fire. I still want to make sure that they have plenty of access to water. I just don't want unlimited access. So anytime that they're spending a lot of time outside, I do want to make sure they have access to water. I also want to make sure that they have water when they're eating, and then I'll give it to them, several times throughout the day. But as soon as I feel like they're done or they've had enough, we're going to take it away. Because what I don't want to do is them drink so much that then they're distended. So I don't want them feeling like a panic that they need to drink because it's going to get taken away, but I also don't want them to think that they can just engorge themselves. So hopefully that makes sense, but that routine is a big part of sleeping through the night. Now, they shouldn't be having accidents and they shouldn't be making noise in the crate. So if they do make some noise in the crate, for the first couple minutes, we're going to ignore that. We're going to let them just settle down, especially in the first day or two as they get home. They are going to be under some stress, and so you're their source of comfort. But I don't want them thinking that if they throw a big fit, that you're going to let them out. So for the first 5 minutes, just let them kind of cry it out. Then the first thing that I'll go to is just draping a blanket over the crate. By doing that, we're making sure that they can't see outside, and they're a lot like parrots. If they can't see what's going on, they're going to settle down easier. We've also taught them a hush command. If they do, just continue carrying on. And so if I need to give them that command, it'll be no, hush. And so it's a little bit louder. Obviously, you're implementing a correction, and they should quiet down. Now, if they just carry on like they didn't even hear that, then I might accompany with a little tap on top. So I'm not banging on the crate, but it will just be, no, hush. And it's just to break them of their reverie. I don't want to, kick the crate across the room or cause like any type of fearfulness, but it's just like, hey, knock it off. So that's our correction there. Now, the biggest mistake that you can make with crate training is letting them out if they are crying. Because as soon as you do that, they figure out like, oh, if I throw a fit, they're gonna let me out. So absolutely no positive attention if they're crying in the crate. The second worst thing that you can do is come over and go, oh, it's okay, I'll let you out in a minute, and stick your fingers in the crate. Because same thing, you're giving them positive attention for throwing a fit. So it is no positive attention if they're crying in the crate. If they are making noise and you are about to let them out, still expect some silence. So I'll tell them hush, and I want them to give me like 10 seconds of silence. If you think, oh my goodness, they're gonna have an accident, they need to go to the bathroom, then I might expect still some silence, but it might be more like 3 seconds. So I'd say hush, okay, now let's go, and we'll get them outside. So that's our evening stuff. During the day, they should also be able to be in their crate comfortably without making noise, without having accidents. Like I said, we build that up to 4 hours at a time. You can put them in the crate more than that. I just don't do longer than a 4-hour block at this point. I utilize the crate very heavily while we're transitioning and while we're working on potty training. So don't be afraid to put them in the crate. It is honestly your best friend. They can be inside the crate for as little as a minute, all the way up to that 4 hours. So anytime you can't give them that 100% supervision, utilize the crate. Now we also want to use the crate both when we're home as well as when we leave. If we only put our puppy in the crate when we're leaving, you're going to build some separation anxiety. They're going to associate the crate with you leaving, and it's going to cause even more panic, even more noise. So utilize the crate when you're home, when you're in the same room as them, as well as when you leave. Now, the other thing is, don't make it obvious that you're leaving all the time. If you make a big deal out of putting them in the crate when you are leaving, same thing, you're going to build some separation anxiety. And it's the same concept when you come home. If you come in the door and you immediately rush over to your dog and, oh, I missed you, you're going to build a charge and they're going to go crazy in the crate. So we want to make sure that that's kind of nonchalant. I'll get to you in a second. Sometimes I'll let you out immediately. Sometimes I'll go to the bathroom or go get a drink. And that way we don't build that charge, but it should be a very calm experience being in the crate. So with that, now I want to talk about our expectations with house training. So your puppy, if they're going home, obviously is doing very, very well with house training. My expectations are that they can be inside the house for 2 hours without needing a break, without having accidents. Now they've been doing that here, but we're going to drop or lower our expectations for the first couple weeks to make sure that we train to success. Now that's not saying that I expect a bunch of regression and you're going to have accidents. It's just saying that I'm going to set them up for success. We always train to success, and I want to make sure that I don't give them the opportunity to fail. So we're going to give you a very strict schedule for the first 2 weeks, and if you'll just follow that, you're not going to give them, once again, that opportunity for accidents. Now, before I go into that schedule, just a couple things that I want to talk about. One is, obviously, there's going to be some hills and valleys with the house training, but we always want them in this forward progression. So once again, we're going to set them up for success. So that's a big part of the schedule, is giving them lots of opportunities to go to the bathroom. And honestly, during these first 2 weeks, paranoia is going to be your best friend. If you even think that they're going to have an accident, or they're like, maybe they need to go to the bathroom, just take them outside. I would much rather take them out 10 times than clean up one accident. You're also going to look for a lot of indicators that they need to go. Once again, 100% supervision is the most important thing you're going to do during this transition. So if you're watching them and you notice that they get up and try and walk away from you, that's an indicator that they may need to go. If they start sniffing really heavily, panting, pacing around, just take them outside. Once again, if your gut says maybe they need to go, just take them out. Now, if they get up and they start spinning little circles, just take them outside. Nobody likes what happens next. Okay? So those are the indicators that we're looking for. If they have an accident, there's kind of two scenarios we look for. One, if they have it away from you and you don't see it, but you stumble across it later, whether it's 2 minutes, whether it's an hour, there is nothing you can do about that. That means that you weren't giving them enough attention, you weren't paying attention to them, and so that's a slap on the wrist. We need to do better as the owner. If you can't give them that supervision, put them in the crate. So scenario number 2 is they start peeing right in front of us. If they're gonna have an accident, that's what I want, because it provides a very valuable opportunity to teach them what I expect. So I'm gonna correct them right there. So it's no, 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 and I'm gonna grab them and run them outside. Now, once I get outside, I'm gonna change my attitude, and I'm gonna bury that frustration deep down, and I'm gonna give them the opportunity to finish. If they finish going to the bathroom outside, I am then going to praise and reward that behavior. That way I create a very black and white experience. It's absolutely not, you do not pee here. Yes, that's where I want you to go. Good dog, good girl, good boy, right? The worst thing you can do is they start peeing in front of you and you just kick them outside and then go and clean it up. Because now they just peed, they got corrected, but then they gotta go outside and play. So it's so important that we go with them and we make sure that they have a job to do when they're going to the bathroom outside. Okay, so now our routine. So once again, it's, I consider it a minor inconvenience for the next 2 weeks for a lifetime of good house training. We did this at the very beginning, but once again, we're gonna take them back down just to make sure we train to success. So here it is. First 24 hours, we are gonna take them over to the bell, they're gonna ring it, and we're gonna go to the bathroom every 30 minutes. They get a treat when they ring the bell and when they go to the bathroom. Okay, so first 24 hours, every 30 minutes. The exception to all of this is if they're in the crate, you don't need to pull them out every 30 minutes, or if they're just passed out asleep, I'm just gonna watch them and I'm gonna wait till they wake up. Okay, so day one, first 24 hours, every 30 minutes. Day two, I'm going to 45 minutes. Same thing, they're gonna ring the bell, we're gonna take them outside, they get a treat for ringing the bell, they get a treat for going to the bathroom. If they don't go to the bathroom, we just come right back in. It's a very neutral experience. Also, these first 2 days, because we are taking them out so often, I'm only gonna give them a minute outside. It's gonna be quick, we have a job to do, we're coming back inside. Now, if they haven't went for a couple hours and you're getting nervous, put them in the crate for 20 minutes and then do it again, okay? Don't just give them free access to your house, especially if they haven't went to the bathroom for a little bit. Okay, so now day three. At day three, we're moving to an hour. So every hour, we're gonna take them to the bells, give them an opportunity to go to the bathroom. But now we're changing things. They are no longer gonna get a treat when they ring the bell. It is only if they go to the bathroom, okay? Where we're taking them out every hour, I'm also gonna bump the time to being, I will give them 3 minutes outside, but no more than that. That's all they need, 3 minutes, we come back in. So for the next few days, so from days 3 to 8, I am staying at 1 hour. I am not gonna surpass that. Every hour, we're going to the bells, we're giving them an opportunity to go to the bathroom. Okay, so that's the first week. Week number 2, all depends on how they did during week number 1. If they've done phenomenal, you haven't even thought about having an accident, or didn't have a close call, we're gonna progress to 2 hours. So for me, I still go every 15 minutes and work up. But the exception is, if I get up to an hour and a half and we have a close call, then maybe I'll drop them back down. So I am more than willing to take away some of that freedom. I'm very, very slow to give it, very quick to take it away. But same thing, I'm only gonna give them 3 minutes outside. They have the opportunity to go to the bathroom, we come right back in. You do not need to give them any more than 3 minutes outside. Otherwise, they're gonna get distracted, they're gonna stall, and they're not focused on what the job is, okay? So that's the first 2 weeks. We're gonna work up to 2 hours. From 2 weeks to a month, we are not surpassing 2 hours. Once again, be slow to give them that freedom, be quick to take it away. If you can follow this schedule, I promise you're gonna have success, because one, we're beating them to the punch. This is not about them having to go to the bathroom that frequently. It is all about establishing a pattern, establishing a routine. This is where the bells are, this is where we're gonna go to the bathroom. My expectations are for you to go in this certain place. Now, it's also important that you take them outside on a leash. That's gonna help them focus on what they're doing. It can be a long lead, but I don't wanna just give them free access to run and play, okay? So that's our routine. Now I'm gonna switch the camera angle and I'm gonna show you how we target the bells. Come here, good boy. All right, so now we're gonna talk about targeting the bells. So the first thing you're gonna do when you get home is you're gonna pull your bells out of your bag and we're gonna go through this exercise. The first part of this exercise we do off the door. You're only gonna do this one time, but I'm gonna hang the bells in front of Bodhi here and I'm gonna reward him for touching them. I'm gonna do this 4 or 5 times before I move to the door. Okay, once we do this and we move to the door, Then I'm going to do a similar exercise where I'm going to lean up against the doorway and I'm going to stare at the bells. Every time he touches them, I'm going to say, okay, outside. I'll do that 3 or 4 times before taking him out. So we're just going to do those 2 parts one time. When I take him outside, I'm going to give him 1 to 3 minutes, depending on where we're at, to go to the bathroom, periodically saying the word outside. Now when he goes, I'm going to say, okay, good outside. I'm going to make it very rewarding. I'm going to give him a treat. I'm going to praise him because I really want to reinforce that behavior. If he doesn't go, we just come back inside. It's a neutral experience. We start over, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate that. So I'm just going to hang the bells. I'm going to stare at him, and stare at the bells. Every time he touches them, I'm going to say, okay. Okay, good boy. Do this 4 or 5 times. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. You can see that he quickly learns that this is a good little treat dispenser. Okay, good boy. So we're just making it fun. He's done that a handful of times. Now we're going to go to the door. Also, a little tip for you. I like to drop the leash and step on it. Okay, outside. That way I can keep control of him and I have both hands free. Okay, outside. Good boy. Okay, outside. Good boy. So I'm going to have him do it one more time and then we're going to go outside. Okay, outside. Good boy. And once again, I'm going to walk him around on leash, periodically saying outside. Okay. You also notice he's expected to wait at the doorway. Okay, good boy. Now, after you do that little exercise, from here on out, when you target the bells, it's just going to be walking him over, staring at the bells. Once he rings it, okay, outside, and then we go outside, okay? And remember, for the first 2 days, I'm giving him a treat for ringing the bells. After that, no more treats. I also want to mention, don't be surprised if for the first 2 weeks, he doesn't go and ring the bells on his own. He may, but then again, we're going to be beating him to the punch so many times that he may not need to go. So we're going to beat him to the bells. So don't be worried about that. The other thing that I want to mention is just if he rings the bells, we have to go outside to the bathroom. There is no play. There is no, you just barely went out, so I'm going to ignore you. You have to take him out. If he keeps hitting the bells one right after another, then redirect him into something else to do. If you were headed outside to go for a walk or to go and play and he rings the bells, we're going to have to go, okay, outside. We're going to go to the bathroom, and then we're going to come back in, wait 10 to 20 seconds, and then we'll go outside. So if you're going outside to play or a walk, make sure you forego the bells. So that's our expectations with crate training and house training. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We want to make sure this transitions over smooth, but this is definitely, as far as the house training goes, this is definitely the part of the program that requires the most effort because it is those 2 weeks of constantly having to take him out. And then every dog house trains differently. So it may go longer than that till you feel confident and comfortable, but don't give him too much freedom until you trust him and you have that relationship. So, all right, so the same thing that you just saw with Mojo, I'm now going to demonstrate with George. So I'm going to take the bells off the door. We'll have him ring those, and then we'll go outside and just show you kind of the same process. So I'm going to have George sit here, grab these bells, step on the leash, and just wait for him to touch them. Okay, good boy. So we'll do this about 3 times. Oh, you missed. So you can see, okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. We'll do one more here. Sorry, that was a crumbly treat. So one more time, and then we'll move the bells to the door. You can see that he's heavily focused on my treat bag. Okay, good boy. So I will slide that behind me. Now, I'm going to have him ring it 2 or 3 times off the door. I'll change my wording, and we'll take him out. Come here. Okay, outside. Good boy. Okay, outside. Good boy. One more. Okay, outside. Good boy. Now we'll take him out. Okay. Outside. Okay. Also notice waiting at the doorway there, he just doesn't have to sit, doesn't have to lay down, just show me that he's in control. When I take him outside, I'm walking him around, periodically saying outside, and then when he goes to the bathroom, I say, okay, good outside, good boy, and I give him a treat. So that's the process of the bells, which I'll help you with when we get down there. So, and for this video, we're going to be demonstrating George's training. So we're going to walk through the manners, the obedience commands, and the leash training during this video. So with all this, I'm going to explain a concept, explain what my expectations are, and then I will be demonstrating with George, who is behind me here in the crate. So I'm very excited to bring George to you. Obviously, when I get to your home, we are going to be working on these manners and commands with you. So this video is just to prepare you to know kind of what to expect and how to do things, and then I'll give you that personalized feedback. But to start, so we're going to hop right into our manners. The first manner that I'm going to show you is our doorways. So anytime we go through a closed door, we go through a crate door, a gate, I do it for any closed door or gate. I expect George to hold an automatic stay. Now, he doesn't have to sit, he doesn't have to lay down, he just needs to show that he is in control and he is going to wait for me to release him. Now, you can create the same expectation with any threshold, but for right now, once again, we're doing closed doors. So as I let him out of the crate, you're going to see my expectation is just that he waits and he's in control. If he tries to come out, or even if he just sticks a paw over that threshold, I'm going to simply tell him no, and I might just close the door. Okay? I'm not harsh about it. I'm just reminding him that he needs to show that he's in control. When we go through a house door, a lot of times I'm going to have a leash on him, so I can use that leash to correct him just with a simple pop pop if he does try and push his way through, or I can use my leg and block him. George does really well though, but sometimes we just need that reminder. So with that, I am going to grab a leash and we're going to let him out. So once again, my expectation is just that he shows that he's in control. Okay, good boy. So he showed me that he was in control. He waited politely for me to release him. I release him with that word okay, and then he's able to come out. Oh, good boy. Once again, when we go through a house door, I'm going to use this leash to manage him, so I can open that door. He shows that he's in control, and then we'll go outside. You'll see me do that a couple times, I'm sure, throughout the demonstration as we take him out to the bathroom and things like that. So, but that's his doorways. So next manner we're going to talk about is his greeting. So anytime that I want George to come over to me or he wants my attention, he is going to sit to get it. So this is a replacement behavior for jumping. And so my expectation, if I said, George, is once he comes over, no, we're not going to the place. Good boy. Once he sits, tell him he's a good boy, give him a little pet. Now, he doesn't have to sit every time I want to pet him, but I do expect this check-in on a regular basis, especially when I'm coming home or I've been away from him for a few hours. I want him to show that he can be in control and that he can be very polite to get my attention. Now, this is a manner that is based a lot on respect or a relationship. And so right now, you notice I didn't give him a treat. I just gave him a pet, told him he was a good boy. And that's because we have a relationship. He respects me. We want this same relationship to transfer over to you. And so for the first 3 days, I'm going to have you do an exercise, which we just call our greeting exercise, just to establish this relationship. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a few treats. You'll take the leash. I'll take a few steps back, say, George. When he comes over to me, he sits down, I'll say, okay, and give him a treat. So we'll do this several times throughout the day, and I will do this with you right off the get-go when I get there. But what it looks like is just, George. He walks over, sits down, okay, good boy. George. Good boy. So for the first, few days that you have him home, I would be pretty consistent with giving him a treat anytime that he approaches you and sits down, because once again, we want this level of respect to transition over. After those 3 days, when he does this, I'm just going to tell him good boy and give him my attention. So once again, this is a replacement behavior for off or for jumping, and he's showing that he's in control. Now, if he tried to jump on me, I am going to tell him off, and I will always step into him and bring my knee up. Okay, I'm not extending, we're not kicking him. It's just a quick little change in my body language to say, I don't like that. And then I will wait for him to show that he's in control. Okay. It is important, if you think that he is going to jump, not to go backwards. As you notice with that greeting exercise, as I stepped back, he followed me. So if I continue to move backwards and I think he's going to jump, he's going to keep following me. Where instead, if I can step into him, I'm showing him that I don't like that, I'm restricting the space, and a lot of times I'm throwing off his timing to where he's not going to jump anyway. Now, if he ever wants to try and jump on your children, one, I will practice. I will take this leash, I will have them call George up, we will walk. If he sits down, they can pet him, they can love on him. If he tries to jump, I say no, off, I pop that leash, and I walk away. And that is the same thing I will do for strangers, because your dog is very handsome, he's a good looking guy. You're going to have people that want to pet him, want to meet him. One, where the objective is to be a service dog, I would make a habit of telling people no. We don't need that to become an exciting stimulus where every time he sees somebody, he thinks that he needs to go and meet them. So it's very easy. I'll just tell people, sorry, he's in training. We can't meet him. Now, if you are okay with it, you want somebody to come up and meet him, one, I do think it's easier for people to come to us versus me go to them. So I will stop short. I will have him check in with me. So he does this little sit to greet. I will reward him, and then I can invite that person up. If he gets out of control though, if he starts jumping, he starts putting paws up, I will tell him no and I will walk away. Okay, he does not get pet, he doesn't get loved on if he is being out of control. You will have people that will say, no, it's okay, I love dogs, and they allow him to jump up, and that will just diminish the training. So if they say that, we say, sorry, no, he's in training, and we walk away. If you have to approach somebody, I'll walk up with him on the leash. I will still stop, maybe 4 feet shy, have him do this little greeting. I'll pet him. Then I will invite that person up. They can pet him. They can love on him. Once that stranger leaves, though, I will regain his attention, maybe give him a treat, and get his focus back on me. So that way I come before and I come after. I am his handler. I want myself to be the greatest thing. I don't want him to think that strangers are a better reward than myself. So yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. The second part to jumping is making sure that he's not rearing up for a treat. Come here. So if I am giving him a treat and his front paws come off the ground, I'm going to say no, and I'll pull that hand back, and then I will tell him gently. So gently serves two purposes. One, it keeps all 4 paws on the ground, tells him that he needs to stay planted. It also tells him that he needs to have a gentle mouth. So anytime he takes treats, I want him to be very soft. So this was probably one of the bigger manners for George, is sometimes he gets a hard mouth and he wants to quickly grab that treat, and then he ends up taking part of my hand with it. So if he seems to be real excited, I'm just going to say gently, and then I do present the treat in the palm of my hand. I usually will cover it with my thumb, so that way he has to use his tongue or his lips to get that treat, and I can control when I give it to him. Kids always want to give puppies treats between their thumb and forefinger, which is a good way to get nipped. We practice that, but that's not the way that I would recommend giving him a treat. But I can do it. I can say gently, and I expect him to be very soft. Good boy, good boy. Okay, so that's gently jumping and our greeting. The next manner we're going to talk about is his mealtime manners. So anytime I feed George, I expect him to hold an automatic sit-stay, so I don't need to tell him sit and stay. Instead, I can usually just shake that bowl, which also I don't care if he decides to lay down. He likes to offer a down, which is great, especially where we did that service prep. That's part of that, making sure that he can be a lot more stable. So I just shake that bowl and set it down, and he's expected to stay until released. Okay, good boy. tell him okay, and he is free to eat. He did already eat breakfast this morning, so he may not be too interested in it. Oh, good boy. Now, we spent a lot of time making sure that he's not going to be guarding or aggressive with his food. She thinks I'm going to trick him. Okay, good boy. I want to make sure that I try and make sure that he's comfortable while I'm around his food, that once again, he's not going to get aggressive or anything. He's quite the opposite. Sometimes he gets a little bit more nervous, especially like this leash kind of dangles and hits the bowl, and sometimes that'll make him jump. So instead, I like to spend some time just petting him while he eats. Sometimes I'll throw treats in his food bowl. I just want to make sure that it's a very positive experience. Oh, good boy. And this goes the same with like handling him, both when he's chewing on something and just in general. Come here. I want to make it a positive experience, especially like he's going to have to go to the groomer, to the vet. And so I want to make sure that we spend time handling him and making him comfortable to like those vet holds. Checking his ears, good boy. Clipping his paws or his nails. Just making that a very positive experience and making sure that he's comfortable and with his own things that he's not going to guard or get aggressive over. Good boy. So we've spent a great deal doing all sorts of fun things. Helping him feel comfortable. Good boy. Good boy. We've never given him a full haircut, but we have got him used to the sound of the shears. We've trimmed around his eyes, hygiene cuts, and his paw pads. Once again, making sure that he feels comfortable with that. He's probably getting close to needing a haircut. Oh, good boy. So, and then handling. Oh, good boy. Toys, chews, all of that. Now, when we're playing with him, we work on the drop it command. So drop it is obviously having him spit out whatever he has. He's not allowed to play keep away or refuse to give it up. So when I give this command, I will usually use his name as well, which he's kind of guessing what we're doing, huh? You know what's going on. Good boy, huh? Which George is really good about just offering that behavior. He's never really tried to fight us too much. Of course, once again, when we work on this command, I just try and incorporate myself into his play. So let's see if he'll start chewing on it here. George, drop it. Good boy. Good boy. So I'll say good when he lets go, okay when I throw it. It's a little bit slow there. George, drop it. Good boy. Good boy, okay. Now, if he ever tries to hold on to something, I will give him a second to process. If he refuses, then I will follow that up with a correction. So I'll say no and expect him to give it up. George, drop it. Good boy. Good boy. If he still refuses, then I am going to remove it. So with all of our training, we start with the least intrusive. So if he refused to give that up, I would take my hands, put them on both sides of the toy, and just slowly rotate my knuckles in. I'm also going to make sure that we're not yanking it around, because playing tug is not a good way to take things. Yeah, you're not going to play with me, huh? That's just not a good way to take things. So instead, I'll take both hands, rotate knuckles in, and expect him to spit it out. If he doesn't, I can come around his muzzle and just wrap my fingers around and pop it out. It's just like a little eject button. Which why we're doing that. So George, I think, oh, you got one more, two more. He's lost most of his teeth. Looks like he's just got a couple canines left to lose, and then he's done with this chewing phase, which or this teething phase, which is really nice. If he starts chewing on something he's not supposed to, I'm going to tell him no, and then I will replace it. I do try and replace whatever he's chewing on with something of equal texture. So if he's chewing on a baseboard, I'm going to give him a bully stick. If he wants to chew on a pillow or a bed, I'll give him something like this plush toy. Wants to chew on a leash, we'll give him a rope. So just try and match those needs, because he's going to be chewing based on what he feels like his mouth needs. Hey. Good. Thanks for demonstrating, huh? Okay. So even that, you can see, like, I didn't use the word no, but it was just a quick, hey. It's just that adjustment in my voice fluctuation helps him understand that what he was doing was not okay. If he picks up like a sock or a shoe, you can use that drop it and then give him something that he is allowed to chew on. But no matter what, I want to correct the behavior and then replace it with something that he is able to chew on, and so that way he succeeds. Good boy. With little kids, if they want to play with George, I always try and have a good sized toy. So that way if they get nervous, they can throw the toy, direct him away, and walk away from him. We never want kids to run away from the dog, because then they make it a really fun game, and puppies especially think that they're the greatest toy in the world, and they run and they squeal. It's a lot of fun. So instead, if we can have a toy, they get a little bit nervous with George, they can throw the toy, direct him away while they go the other way. So, which George is really, really good with kids. He's been fantastic with my kids. He's just very, very sweet, easygoing, just a wonderful personality. Oh, good boy. Okay. Try and make sure. I think that's the bulk of our manners. So we will move on to our obedience commands. Good boy, huh? Now, with the service prep, what we've done is we've created just higher expectations for all of these commands. So when we talk about our standard, we have a set standard for that Puppy Steps training program. With the service prep, we just have a higher standard, and which George is doing phenomenal with it. Doesn't mean that he's perfect. He's still going to break, he's still going to make mistakes, but we're always striving to improve. And we've focused very heavily on adding new distractions, improving the amount of time he can stay, and things like that. So the first one I'm going to show you is his place command. Okay, so I'm going to take him off of his bed. Now with the place command, these elevated beds are a very easy way to teach it, and he can do 5 minutes easy on there. So George, place. So all I'll do is I'll step near, point, direct him there. Once all 4 paws are on, tell him he's a good boy, give him a treat. Now we have been working on creating an expectation with the place command to where it can be anything with a defined boundary. So we've been working on using rugs, we've used towels, blankets, we went to the store and used pallets, anything that has a really good boundary. Anytime we're using something flat like a rug or a towel, I like to go through a couple short reps. I'll guide him on, mark the behavior, reward, release him, and then do that again just to help him understand that that is the place that we're expecting. But because we've treated that, or we've created an expectation that can be so many different things, when I tell him place, I want to be close, I want him to read my body language, and I want to give him clear instructions on where I expect him to stay. Now, as we have heavier distractions around or new distractions, I want to make sure that I reinforce the behavior of staying here. Good boy. So periodically I'll come up, I'll tell him good, and I'll give him another treat. Obviously me just talking, walking around isn't that heavy of a distraction. He could do this, like I said, 5-10 minutes easy. Now, if it's harder distractions, I'm going to expect less time. So when I have my 4 kids here and they're running around crazy, I'm not going to expect him to be able to just lay there and do 10 minutes. Instead, I'm going to stay close and I'm going to say, oh, that's a good boy, and I'm going to continue to reinforce this behavior of being calm on the bed as that distraction happens. So we'll add a little bit of distraction here. I'll leave the room. The hardest one is always walking behind a dog because he wants to follow with his head. Good boy. And all of these I'll show you in person, we'll do it. And anytime that we do these in a new environment, I'm always going to expect him to be a little bit more on edge. And so as we do this at your house, we'll start slow and then we'll continue to add more and more distractions. Good boy. Good boy. In general, when I'm using place, I try not to hype him up Oh, good boy. Because then he's going to want to follow me. Oh, good boy. Good boy. But there, we got him wound up. Okay, good boy. When he comes off, good dog. I don't give him a treat. So the treats only happen when he is in place. So that way he's thinking the longer I stay here, the more rewards I'm going to get. Whereas when I come off, I just get told that I'm a good dog and pet. Good boy. George, place. So once again, I point. He goes on. Good boy. Reward. So this is my favorite command because I can put him in place and have him kind of out of the way. So I use this for my dogs when the doorbell rings. I'll send them to their place. That takes a lot of practice because that's a high level distraction because they don't know who's behind the door. But this is a great thing to implement. Okay, good boy, George. So the crate is very similar, where I walk over and I say, crate. He gets a reward for going in, but not for coming out. Now, same expectation that he is expected to stay until released. It's an automatic behavior. I'm not telling him stay. This one is a shorter amount of time because most of the time I'll probably lock him up, right? But I do want to practice this command a lot so that he doesn't build a negative association with the crate. Okay, good boy. So no reward for coming out. Crate, just for going in. Okay, good boy. George, crate. Good boy. Okay. All right. So our next three commands do have hand signals. So we have sit, which is a scoop over the nose. Down, I'll take my hand flat off to the side and tell him down, and then stay as a stop sign. So we have stays for both sit and down. His stays are fantastic. We've been adding a lot of distractions. This is a shorter term stay, so he gets the treat at the very end. He doesn't get it for sit and down and then stay. He just gets it at the very end. So we've been working on walking around him, which once again, that's a very heavy distraction because they want to follow with their eyes. Boy, we've worked on going up and petting him, which is another very heavy distraction. Good dog. Because obviously then he's going to want to follow me to continue to get pet. We've worked on leaving him and walking out of sight, especially in stores, going around the aisle, having him stay. He's doing fantastic. Skylar likes to run and jump over him and do all sorts of crazy tricks. Good boy, huh? We're just working on more and more things just to help him be stable in those new and uncomfortable situations. Okay, good boy. Good boy, huh? Which, once again, he does fantastic. So with that, if I put him in a sit stay, I don't care if he lays down because that does, like, he's getting more comfortable, he's more stable that way, but he does have both a sit and a down stay. Now, if he's in a down stay, he is not allowed to come up into a sit. And same thing, if he went into a down right here and then tried to pop back up into a sit, I would then correct that and reset it because I don't ever want him coming up. But you'll also notice a sit stay is less stable because it's easy for him to pivot, to follow, and to stand up. Okay, good boy. But he does a good job. He's a very good boy. Now, once again, he's doing fantastic. especially with new and sometimes uncomfortable distractions. But there's going to come a time where he struggles. Like every dog, depending on the day or what's around them, may struggle. Okay, so if he breaks, one, I'm going to just tell him no and have him do it again. We're never going to end on failure. But if he breaks 3 times in a row, for whatever reason, it's too hard. Even if we did the same type of stay 5 minutes ago or yesterday, whatever it is, it's too hard. So at that point, I am going to take a step back and I'm going to simplify it to make sure I help him succeed. Even if that means that I have to break down this behavior to the simplest form, where I need to be right in front of him, and I'm like right here and help him go down, and then have him do like a 2-second stay right in front of me and then give him a treat. I will do whatever it takes to help my dog succeed. I don't ever want him to get frustrated or to end on failure. Good boy. So I will reward simple victories when I need to. But you're just too good. You're just too good. Just too good, He's a very, very good boy. And he's got some phenomenal stays. So, which you're going to see in person here in a few days. Now, the next command is a leave it command. I'm going to grab some different treats here. Now, leave it is different than drop it, because drop it is if they already have something in their mouth, where leave it is before they ever get to it. So leave it means don't sniff it, don't touch it, it's off limits forever. So we use this a lot, like when we're on a walk. He smells something, starts checking it out, whether it's roadkill, whether it's garbage, whatever it is. Or you could do it in a home setting, like maybe you're cooking, you drop something on the floor you don't want him to get. I'll say leave it, and I expect him to leave it alone. Now, where I'm going to use some of his treats, I'm grabbing his leash just so I'm prepared to manage him if he does try and go for it. But we're going to stand him up. Come here. Walk him around in a circle here. I'm going to drop these treats on the floor. Leave it. Good boy. Notice he looks at me. Obviously, he's right here next to him. But he is not allowed to go for him. And as he continues to leave them alone, I will continue to reward him. If he went for it, I would quickly say, no, leave it. Good boy. Good boy. You can see he obviously knows that they're there, but he's not going for them. We've worked on this with a number of different things. No. So even this, he's sniffing it. Good. I told him no. If he were to actually go for it, I would quickly tell him no, leave it. Get a little bit more firm. Good boy. No. Good boy. So leave it means do not touch it, leave it alone completely. Now I do not use leave it for like permanent objects in the home. So even like potted plants or baseboards, anything that he's going to have constant access to, I only use it for things that I can remove from George or I can remove George from. So you can use this for like shoes or your kids' stuffed animals, anything you don't want him to get. Those are our commands in this section. So now I am going to adjust the camera and we're going to go through his leash work. So we'll do the heel, we'll talk about engagement, we'll do the watch me command, the long lead walk, and our recall. And that will conclude this portion of the video. So with that, let me flip the camera around and we'll go to that point. Oh, good boy. Good. Good boy. All right, so we're going to start by talking about the heel. The heel is for you. This is not for George. The heel is how we get from point A to point B. We're ignoring distractions. So I use this when we're out on a walk and maybe there's a jogger coming towards us or a bicycle. Anything where I just need his attention to be focused on me and not on that distraction. We also use this when we're out in public. So because I need his focus, I need to do something to keep his focus. And this behavior is very relationship based. So one, George needs to trust that I'm going to take care of him because we're passing a lot of distractions. And if he doesn't have this relationship with me, if he doesn't respect me as a leader, he's going to be a little bit anxious and be trying to pay attention to all those distractions around. So when I walk him, I give him a ton of feedback, both positive and corrective if needs be. He doesn't get a pull. I expect him to be by my side with a loose leash, paying attention to me and walking at my pace. So once again, I'm going to give him a lot of feedback to keep that. When I stop, I expect him to stop and I expect him to sit down. I do give him a little pressure up when I stop to make sure he stops at my side and not directly in front of me. So during this walk, he's on my left side. I use a very short leash. This is a short leash in general, but I cut this like in half. He gets like 18 inches of space. So it looks like this. Heel. Good boy. So obviously we're inside. Good boy. With not a lot of distractions around, but this is the expectation. He's going to walk next to me, focusing on me. Good boy. Good boy. And I'm giving him feedback. Good dog. Now I can walk into him and he's watching my body language, making sure to follow my pace. Heel. If I change complete directions, I will say heel again just to give him that necessary information. Good boy. Good boy. Huh. When I stop, I'll give him a little pressure and he stops and sits. Good boy. So it's a very simple activity, but once again, this one requires a lot of, or it's very relationship based. It requires a good relationship with your dog, which is going to take time. So this walk, we are going to practice a lot with limited distractions, build that rapport up, and then gradually implement more and more distractions. Good boy. Now, if he starts to pull, we have a few different levels of correction that we'll go through. So one, if he just gets a little distracted, he notices a jogger, he's not pulling, but he's also not paying attention to you. At that point, I'll give him that quick feedback of, hey, George, good boy. Something just to get him to regain his attention on me. Okay. If that doesn't work, if then he actually starts to lean into that leash, which to me, if there's any pressure, if this leash is tight at all, he is pulling. So I'm going to do something to prevent that. If we let him get this pressure and my arm's doing this, then he is learning he can pull through it. So I always expect a loose leash. So if he even starts to put that pressure in, then I'm going to tell him no, and I will pop the leash twice. So no, pop, pop. I will do that twice. So if I said no, pop, pop, if he looked up at me and he started walking polite, I'll take, 1 or 2 steps and then say, good boy, and I'll reward that. If he doesn't, if he continues to pull, I will say no, pop, pop. I'll get a little bit more firm. Okay, but if I do that twice and it doesn't make a difference, then I need to change what I am doing. So at that point, I will come to a complete stop where we are not progressing forward if you're not going to pay attention to me. We absolutely never get to approach a distraction if he is pulling. So I'll come to a complete stop, pop that leash. If he looks at me, he sits down, he shows that he's in control. I will then say heel again. We'll take a few steps. If he shows that he's in control, I'm like, good boy. I will give him that feedback. But if he started pulling again, at that moment I would say no, and I would step through him and I would walk the opposite direction. Okay. Once again, we are not approaching a distraction if he isn't in control. As soon as he shows that he is in control, then we can start walking back towards the distraction. But if he starts to pull again, I turn around and go back. So I will go back and forth, as many times as it takes for him to regain control. Sometimes I'll even zigzag, forcing him to pay attention to me. So if we saw a distraction, I would say no, heel, and I'm going to walk quicker. Come on. We getting tired? Good boy. Heel. Turn around, give him a little bit of leash pressure. I will do whatever it takes to keep my dog in control. Good boy. So that's the heel and what to do if he pulls. He never gets to pull. Dogs pull because we let them. So if he starts to put any tension in the leash, I immediately correct that and I bring him back to focus. So now, there are going to be times where you're on a walk and you come across a distraction where George gets reactive. So reactive can be on more of the dominant side of things, where it's I'm going to stand my ground and I'm going to bark, 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 or really lunge towards something. That's reactive. It can also be reactivity where I don't like this, I'm going to try and pull the other way and run away from the distraction. So either way, if he gets to a point where he cannot focus on you, he's entered into that red zone, trying to walk is pointless. All you're going to do is get pulled around. It's going to make him nervous. So it's much better to get a little bit of distance and engage with him. And that distance can be 5 feet off of the sidewalk. It can be 100 feet the opposite direction. I will get as much distance as needed for him to regain his focus and his control. So at this point, I go through very similar steps to pulling. Initially, he starts getting reactive. I'm going to say, hey, George, something to get his attention. If he continues to be reactive, I'm going to quickly tell him no, pop that leash, and then I will walk him away from the distraction. So we will get that distance. Once we get that distance to where he's starting to come out of it, he's looking at me, maybe he's still looking at the distraction, we will stop and I will let him observe. He can watch that distraction as long as he wants, as long as he's in control. As he's in control, I'm using a watch me command just to get his eye contact. Good boy. And anytime he looks at me, I'm saying, good boy, good boy, good boy, and I'm giving him treats. So I'm rewarding calm behavior, but still allowing him to observe this distraction. Because I don't want to coddle him, I don't want to scoop him up and be like, oh, it's okay, and feed him full of treats and walk away from that distraction. I want him to observe. I want him to observe without interacting, though. If he can do that, then we'll gradually get closer, just as close as we can without interacting with it. If he cannot focus on me, at that point I will step in front of him. I will put my back towards the distraction and reward him for looking at me. If he continues to kind of do this dodge around me, I will kind of step into him. So I reset him, I reset my body language, and I may even bend down, like tap his nose and be like, hey, watch me. Good boy, good boy. And so that watch me command is just to get eye contact. Once again, as he comes out of that red zone, we can observe without interacting. You are going to have to do this with your dog at some point. When I do this, though, we're remaining calm. Calm is honestly the number one key to having successful engagement. Huh, buddy? Watch me. Okay, good boy. I don't really have a good distraction right now, so I'll try and grab Skylar here in a minute and we'll quickly do an engagement exercise and I'll plug it in. All right, so Skylar's here with me now. She's gonna try and distract George while I try and engage with George. And we're just gonna walk through kind of those steps that I've described. So this is kind of what I would do. George, come here. Nope. Good boy. George, good boy. Good boy. Good boy, George. Good boy. Huh. George, come on. Good. Good boy. George. Good. Good dog. Watch me. Okay, good boy. There it was. Nope. Good. Good boy. So even though he knows Skylar, that's a pretty good distraction. He's focusing on me, he's engaging with me, and putting that focus here. So it's exactly what we want. It's a very simple distraction being in here, especially that he knows Skylar. I'm sure that we'll have a better distraction at your house. But the expectation is that I'm going to remain calm, George is going to remain calm, and he's going to focus on me. So, thank you. With that, we're going to move on to our long lead and our recall. So once again, short leash heels are for you, not for George. That's how we get from point A to point B through distractions. If I'm going to exercise my dog, I prefer to use a long lead. So that way I give him space to run around and to actually exercise. A long lead walk, we go at his pace. If he wants to stop and sniff something, he can stop and sniff something. This is one of my shorter long leads, so this one's 15 feet. It's great for around neighborhoods or anywhere where there's still a little bit of traffic and distractions. It's long enough to where he can get some space, but if I need to, I can reel it in and still do a heel. So if he was at this distance and you needed to heel, I just literally strip it in and then I can heel, and I've got a short leash. Once again, this walk, we're going at his pace, but he is still not allowed to pull. This is when I practice my recall command, which the recall command is your number one command. This is calling your dog to come to you no matter the distraction. So the more you practice this, the better he's going to be, which he has a fantastic recall. We've implemented a lot of different distractions. So that recall is I'll say his name and then I'll call him to come, which I missed my opportunity here. So I will call him back to me every time he hits the end of the leash. So this is what it sounds like. George, come. Good boy, good boy. Okay, so the moment he starts initiating the action of coming towards me, I'm gonna say, good boy, good boy. And then when he gets to me, I say, okay, and give him that treat. So the good is reinforcing the action of coming towards me. We're reinforcing that behavior, and then okay tells him he did the right thing. So it's, George, come. Good boy, good boy. Okay. Now you'll notice he's getting tired. He even kind of hesitated for a split second, but then he ended up following through, and so he got rewarded. If he didn't, come here, George. If he failed, if he just looked at me like, I don't really want to get up, I will just give him a slight tug. So I'll put that pressure in. So if I said the recall, he ignored me, I would say no, and give him, good boy, that pressure. Good boy, okay. So I'll say no, give him that pressure. Once he caves into it, I'm going to say, good boy, reinforce that behavior, reward him. Okay. So I do this every single time he hits the end of the leash. He puts a little bit of pressure there. I say, George, come, give him a reward, let him go again. So that way, it's really positive. It's fun for him. He gets to go on this really enjoyable walk, and he's also getting a lot of treats just for checking in with me. So that's the long lead walk. There are going to be times where he's off leash, which I would assume anyway. I don't know how your neighborhood is, or if there's places where you're going to take him where he's off leash. We have the luxury of having a lot of area where he's off leash here, and so we practice these off leash recalls. I never let him off leash though, unless I know without a doubt that he is going to come back to me. So if you are going to do off leash walks, I would recommend start with the long lead, practice these recalls. As he's doing really good, in a few weeks or a month or so, you can let him off leash, but in a fenced in area, maybe a backyard, practice that recall. If he hesitates, you know that we need to stay on the long lead for a while. If he does really well, then we can give him a little bit more freedom. But as you give him that freedom, if he hesitates, if he ignores you, I quickly will put him back on the long lead. So that way I have a way to follow through, and I can really focus on building this command even more than what it already is. Now, if he's off leash and he ignores you, ignores that recall, there's a couple things that I would look at. One, if he is heavily distracted, his head's down a hole, maybe he's at a point where he might not even be able to hear you, instead of just starting to shout at him to come and getting frustrated, just go and get your dog. Just walk up to him, go get him. It saves a lot of frustration. Because if I call him to come, no matter what, if he comes to me, I am rewarding him. I absolutely never reprimand my dog for coming to me. So even if he was off leash, I called him to come and he failed, and I had to go all the way to him, or not all the way, but let's say I got 90% of the way to him, and then he looked at me and he's like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? And then he comes up to me, I will reward even that last 10%. No matter what, if he is coming to me, I am rewarding that behavior. Never reprimand or get mad at your dog for coming to you. If I had to go 100% of the way there, so if he ignored me, I had to walk up to him. Once I got to him, I would then clip the leash on, and I'm going to help him succeed. So if I clip that leash on, then I would say, come, good boy, and I would walk backwards and reward him for following. Okay, so I'm always ending on a success, helping him understand what my expectations are. The other thing is if he's off leash and he ignores my recall, a lot of times I can use a little bit of reverse psychology and be like, George, come on, come on, come on. Oh, that's a good boy. Notice how he gets excited and he follows me. But if you're angry, if you're no, and you're running after him, he's going to get nervous and he's going to run the other way. So I'm never going to chase him, but I will, if I have to go and get him, I will say no, and I will use like a serial killer walk, and then I will go and get him. Okay. So no matter what, if he fails, I'm going to help him succeed. So that's the recall, and I believe that's everything. So like I said, I'll stitch in, which if you're watching this, you've already seen the engagement part, but I'll try and stitch that in. All of this we'll talk about in detail, and I'll work with you one-on-one when I get down to your home on Thursday. I look forward to bringing George to you. Thanks for allowing us to train him. He's a super good dog. We've absolutely loved him. He's very, very sweet. But if you have any questions, especially as you're watching this, write them down. I'm happy to answer any questions when I get down there, and look forward to meeting you in person. Thanks.